Welcome, everyone. This is the DFS Bum. All right, Thursday night showdown. We have Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers here. So let's get into this game. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so. I'd very much appreciate that. All right, guys, let's start off here with the quarterbacks, and we'll just kind of talk about the overall defensive matchup here as well. So we have Matt Ryan and Teddy Bridgewater. Overall defense here, Ryan probably a little bit tougher against the Panthers. Their defense overall is ranked 12th from a fantasy standpoint. Against opposing quarterbacks, they're very tough. They're 5th. And then we have opposite story for Teddy Bridgewater here. Excuse me. He has the best matchup going against the Falcons. They're the worst rated pass defense in the NFL from a fantasy standpoint, also against opposing quarterbacks. So with the year, we have Ryan coming in here, averaging 19 points. The last 5 games, he's had 16, 32, 8, 12, and 12. So I really don't know what Matt Ryan we're going to get here. I mean, he just struggled against the Detroit Lions last week, and that's the Lions. The Lions have been playing a little bit better defense, but hey, man, at the end of the day, it's the freaking Lions, and he only threw up 16 fantasy points against them. And we have a tougher matchup now, so I'm not really sure how excited I am about him. Price tag is $14,500 on Fanduel. He's $1,700 less on DraftKings. I'm sure I'll have him in some of my MVP spots, but again, it's just hard to be excited about him given that it's going to be a tougher matchup. Now with Bridgewater here, on the other hand, he's $13,500 on FanDuel, $900 less on DraftKings, so a little bit cheaper. With him, he's been averaging about 18 points for the year. His last 5 games, he's had 19 points, 11, 21, 27, and 15. So that's another guy that I guess with the matchup, you think that that probably bodes well for him. Something here too I should point out, and we'll go back and look at Ryan here in a second. The last time that Bridgewater played against Atlanta, normally it would show the last 5 times, but for him, apparently he's only played him once in his career. And he had 21 points, so I'm not really sure when that was. But let's go and jump at Ryan. So last time Ryan has played Carolina, we can go back 8 points, 21, and 16. So can't remember if they play them yet this year, but they are in that same division. So you can see historically, how he's done with them, at least for the last three outings there. So, with them, like I say, as far as their MVP, I'm not sure how excited I am with Ryan versus Bridgewater, but even with Bridgewater, I'm not necessarily expecting him to light the world on fire per se. It'll probably come down to one of their pass catchers, I'd imagine, in that MVP spot. Or when we get to the running backs, we'll talk about those too, and potentially with Christian McCaffrey coming back or not. So, all right, let's just jump over here right now. Since we're talking about the quarterbacks, we'll just go right into the receivers and the tight ends, and I'll circle back with the running backs. So from receiver standpoint, we have here, guys, we'll talk about the matchup, I suppose, real quick. So we already kind of talked about the overall matchup, and of course that's going to favor the Carolina receivers. Now, individually, Carolina is very tough against the receivers as well, along with the quarterback, which I suppose makes sense. They're 4th ranked overall, whereas if we jump on the other side of the ball, Atlanta really struggles there. They're 28th in that position rating versus them. And if you guys are curious, I'm working off a draft dashboard here. If you ever want to try it out, it's an awesome research tool. It's got lineup builders on it and whatnot, lineup optimizers. And you can go in there and you try it out for $1 for just a month. So it's pretty good. After a couple weeks, you're going to know whether you like it or not. So it's especially with the amount of money that we put up, I think it's pretty good use of $1 if you've not yet tried this out. So, all right, getting back here with Ridley. He's 14,000 on FanDuel, 13,000 on DraftKings. He's been averaging 17 points for the year. Targets 9, so we really like that. You can see he's out there in the field, 79% of the snaps. Usage rate is 17%. So that's a guy there that you could definitely see him coming into that MVP spot. I would like him compared to at least Ryan and the pass catchers because they're cheaper than Ryan. And we've got the the salary multiplier that we have to also take in mind in DraftKings, where on Fanduel we're really just looking more for the raw points. But Ridley obviously is just a hell of a player, pretty damn consistent too. If we go back here, his games, the last 4 games, it looks like, I think maybe the 4th game back he didn't play. So these last 4 times he did play, points 15, 16, 18, and then 14. Against Carolina, 18, 16, and 24. So again, that's a guy that I would definitely consider for that MVP spot, but just potentially because, like I say, I mean, he's just all the targets that he has. That is one guy that did pretty decent against Detroit the other day. All right, then from there, sort these guys by their salary. So coming in right behind them, we have Julio Jones. He's 13,000 on FanDuel, 1,300 less on DraftKings. He's been averaging about 14 points for the year, about 8 targets on the field 72% of the time. Usage rate is 15%. So it's kind of funny just because Julio Jones is such a damn good player, but it's kind of like Ridley's probably got to the point where he's surpassed him. Last couple games out, Julio had 14, 30, didn't play, had 5 and didn't play. Last time he's played against Carolina, last 2 games, 9 and 12 there. So that's a guy there between the two of them. I'm sure I'll throw them into my MVPs spots. Probably them, Robbie Anderson, maybe some DJ Moore in there. Like I mentioned, McCaffrey, of course, if he does play. But these guys right there, I think, have got as good a chance as any. Just obviously the potential for big plays, even though they do have a tougher matchup there. So, okay, now going down here, and we might as well just round out the Atlanta receivers. So their slot guy essentially is going to be Russell Gage. He's only 7,500 on FanDuel, 1,400 less on DraftKings. So he's going to be coming in there at, what are we going to be, 6,100 there. Points for the year, about 8 points, 6 targets. Looks like he is banged up a little bit, as well as Julio Jones, so just keep an eye on that, questionable-wise. As of now, I'd expect both of them to play, but that's what this shading means here. So again, obviously, we mentioned he's a tougher matchup, but price tag-wise, you're going to have to buy down somewhere, so he's probably fairly decent area to potentially buy down in. He's on the field for 57% of the snaps. Usage rate is 15% when he's out there. And like I say, he's like targets. That's pretty decent, like 6 targets a game. I mean, especially for your third guy. I think Atlanta has been leading the league in passing overall. It is, probably because they're getting their ass kicked. So you could maybe see there just being a lot of potential passing yards in there as well. And then from there, some other guys with Atlanta. Zacchaeus here. I don't know about him. Now, he is $6,000. So from that standpoint, as far as buying down for somebody, he's probably maybe the best option that you might have potentially here, because with him, he's targeted 3 times a game. His points are only about 3 points a game, but he's out there for 43% of the snaps, and his usage rate is 10%. So really, that's kind of what I'm looking for when I'm buying down on these guys, is really who's out there, at least just to, first of all, who's out in the damn field, right? And then from there, go in and look at the usage rate. And it is boom or bust, so if it's like a cash lineup or you don't do a whole lot of lineups, I don't know if I would chase down a guy like that. But if you're somebody like me that does a lot of lineups and you do want to go in there and get some low price guys so you can buy up on some other guys, I do think that that is a great place to go. And I say it time and time again, it's just going to take one play. Guy get you a cheap guy like that can get you 9-10 points like that, and you'll see it in the winning lineup like all the time. That shit like that happens. You usually see that on the tight end position, like the second or third string tight end, it seems like. And we'll talk about those in a little bit. So other guys with Atlanta, I don't know with potentially with Christian Blake there. He's only out in the field for 15% of the snaps. Targets only 1. He's 5,500. So, I don't know, like, it's like that extra or that $500 you're gaining by playing him versus Zacchaeus here. Unless you absolutely needed that to fit in there, I probably would shy away from him. Other guy too, Brandon Powell, he's only 5,000, but same thing with him. Speaking of Lions, used to play with Lions, more of a slot type guy, but he's only on the field 14% of the time. Both those guys about 9 to 10% usage rate. Targets only 1% or one a game though, so not really excited about that. All right, now let's go here and look at the Carolina guys. So here we've got some very intriguing options. DJ Moore is coming in for the year, averaging almost 13 points, coming off a 23-point game. He's only 11,000 on FanDuel, 10,200 on DraftKings. Matchup here, well, just great matchup for him. Last 5 games, 23 points, 12, 17, 7, and 8. So relatively consistent. About 7.5 targets for the year, so we like that. He's out there 85% of the snaps, usage rate 14%. So hell yeah, definitely a guy. And whether he's not even your MVP lineup, these guys in these mid-tier pricing, or I suppose maybe like low or mid to upper tier pricing. Yeah, I could see 2 out of these 3 receivers probably potentially being in that winning lineup just because the matchup is so favorable. Now with Robbie Anderson, yeah, he left, had some good years at New Jersey, kind of came over here relatively with little fanfare to the switch over. And he's been having a hell of a year. He started off with some monster games, a little bit more back down to earth. The last 5 weeks, he's been 10, 10, 16, 14, and 8. For the year, about 8.5 targets, 13 points has been averaging. Again, like I say, just a phenomenal matchup for him. So you like his potential, and as you'd seen was the first 2 games, he just had some monster games there. So, and that's been throughout his career as well. So he's definitely that guy that could go deep. They get a couple of deep plays for him. The next thing you know, the guy's the leading scorer and your MVP candidate. With him, his snap count is 76%, usage rate is 18%. So he's out in the field a lot as well. I know he's out there, he's involved, so we like all that. Now we get down to their third receiver. We have Curtis Samuel, and he's another guy. He's 8,000. So between both of those guys, you could probably see, and it might be in some lineups when you're building. Maybe it works out where you've got a salary slot, and if you do a fair amount of lineups, and it can fit in there, maybe you work those guys in and out between Samuel and Gage with the idea one of those little slot guys is going to end up having a decent night. With Samuel, he's only 8,000 on Fanduel. He is 6,600 on DraftKings. For the year, about 5 targets, about 8 points. He's on the field about 2/3 of the time, 63%. Usage rate's 19%, so you definitely like that. So he's definitely involved. His games, 14 points last game out. Then it looks like he didn't play, 9, 6, and 7. And let me go back to look at these guys against Atlanta. So Moore, 17, 10, and 14. Robbie Anderson, 16 times, 16 points. Again, that'd be a different team. Here, Samuel, 9, 5, and 5. So it gives you an idea. It's not like no one's really had a monster game per se with those guys, but obviously, they're capable of having big nights. So from here going down, if we're going to try to buy down in some of this cheaper area with any of the other Carolina guys, I do feel we're have somewhat slim pickings here, like Cooper. He's 5,000, but he's only out there for 13% of the snaps. He's only had been targeted once the last 3 weeks. Zylstra, basically same thing. He's only out there 6% of the snaps. If you were going to buy down, Roberts, probably, potentially, I suppose. He's out there for 21% of the snaps, but he's not even averaging a target a game. He hasn't had a target the last 3 weeks. So, like I say, if you did really want to buy down with all those guys, it would probably be Zacchaeus out of the cheaper options here that I'm seeing that's got the most likely to come out and do something. All right, let's go here to tight ends. So we have, let's see here, sorted by the salary. So Hayden Hurst, pretty good salad year. He came over, where was he at? He want to say he was with the Ravens in the past there, but Austin Hooper, obviously left. I was talking to Buddy the other day like that. He went to Cleveland. From fantasy standpoint, that certainly didn't work out from him. Now he probably got paid, so financially, I'm sure he's happy about it. But yeah, Hooper was a pretty solid tight end for Atlanta, so no longer there. But Hurst, I think, has done relatively decent. I mean, he's getting 5.5 targets a game, almost 8.5, 9 points. Salary-wise, 9,500, so he's kind of in that. Now we're starting to get in that mid-tier, so you like that. He's out there on the field 73% of the snaps. Usage rate is 10%. It's pretty solid for a tight end, for that someone that plays that often. Like I say, 9,500 on FanDuel, 1,700 less on DraftKings. Excuse me. Matchup is a little bit tighter, a little bit tougher for him. The Panthers are 10th overall against tight ends, but like I say, I mean, he's out there and he's contributing. I wouldn't necessarily consider him for like the MVP or anything like that, but if we go out here and look at his points, 10, 14, 2, 7, and 7. So if he gets you something around, again, 10 points, 10, 14 points, and you're paying 9,500 for him, chances are that you're going to find that type of salary. in that type of score in the winning lineup, the top one, which I think is something that I don't know. That's in my mindset on here. It's is that we're going to try to win the thing, especially if we're doing a fair amount of entries. So, all right, from here then we really drop off at the tight ends, and like I mentioned, this is where I typically see some of the cheaper guys that come into play, as far as be able to come in there and maybe get you a couple points or a touchdown or something. And like I mentioned, you see it happen all the time in the goal line type situations, where it's short and goal, and they might do a play action pass, and they end up throwing it to that second or third tight end that's out there, maybe a fullback. And occasion you'll see like that 6 offensive linemen come in and then make themselves an eligible receiver. So at an occasion it goes the fucking tackle, which is, I guess we don't have to worry about tackles, thank God, and put them in our lineup. But all right, so with these guys, Ian Thomas with Carolina, he's out there 64% of the snaps. So from there, that's good. Now his usage rate is only 4%. So that, of course, is the bad. That's why it's 5,500 on Fanduel. It's 2,000 left on DraftKings, so he's super cheap there. Matchup wise, though, both of those guys, that's something that another thing that Atlanta's just horrible at. Hockenson the other day had a big game with Detroit, caught that winning touchdown, and that was a fucked up game. If you guys saw that, Gurley accidentally scored a touchdown, and it's like that's like the shit that only the Lions would win a game like that. Normally they lose games like that, it seems like. But anyhow, so with him now on the bad side with Thomas here, his target's only 1.7, and only 2 points for the years what he's averaging. Last game's out 2-1-0, 8-1. So it's kind of like that 8-point game, something like that. It's probably what happened. I wouldn't be surprised if we got a touchdown on that. And they're like the 5-yard line. He got half a point for the catch, half a point for 5 yards, and like 6 points for the TD, or whatever. I guess it'd be a little bit more than that if he had 8. But something like that, for example, is probably what happened. He probably didn't have that many catches, probably snuck in a touchdown. You got this Chris Monnertz here. He's 5,000 on FanDuel. With him, he's out there 54% of the time, but his touch rate goes down even more, only 2%, only 0.7 targets. So, outside of that, I'm just not really excited about him. And honestly, any of these guys, like, you're not really like banking on them. And so I say, back with the receivers, is I wouldn't use any of those guys in like a cash lineup per se. If I was just doing a handful of lineups, it's probably not worth chasing them down. But he's out in the field, like I say. Other guy potentially on Atlanta would be Stalker. He's out there for 41% of the snaps. So he's out there quite a bit, but again, his usage rate is only 2%, and he's got a 0.6 target. So again, like all those guys, really the benefit, I guess, on them is if you're making a lot of lineups, is they usually are low owned. So if you do have them in that winning lineup, there's less chance to have that big tie, which can happen at times on these showdown slates. All right, running backs. So the $1 million question here is all about McCaffrey. And as of now, they don't have him listed on here for whatever reason. Interesting. They're saying, though, that they're expected that he might come off of the IR. His pricing, let's see here real quick, it was $16,500 FanDuel. I don't have DraftKings handy, but he's going to be expensive if he does play. If he does play, he's obviously a guy that you could consider for that MVP spot. Now, with them, that is one thing Atlanta, I suppose, is fairly decent at compared to all the other aspects of their defense is the run. They're 14th against running backs, so they're pretty good there, whereas that is flip-flop that seems to be something where Carolina struggles with. Compared to like how well they're doing with all those other ones. They're 28th in there. So McCaffrey obviously can come into play if he's playing, particularly that MVP spot. He is pretty damn expensive. I'm kind of surprised he's that expensive right out the gate, coming off from injury. So, you look at that, and I'm a few days out. It's Tuesday afternoon right now. So I think the IR, I think it's like Wednesday at 4 or something like that. There's a certain deadline I know where they needed to make that decision. And it will be like, say, well in advance before, like, I think it's 90 minutes are supposed to come out with who's active, inactive. So you'll have some time to definitely work around McCaffrey, I suppose, like plenty of time without having to wait any last minute like bullshit or editing lineups and things like that. So again, if he plays, he's obviously a guy, just amazing player. you're going to consider him. Now, and here's the thing: if he does play, they're saying Mike Davis is still going to play and be involved, but at 15,000, that's really kind of like the question. It's like if McCaffrey does play, with Davis there, like, boy, he's just so expensive from that standpoint. And with Davis, I mentioned it, like I say, he's 15,000 on Fanduel, 1,700 less on DraftKings. If you look at his snap rate, it's 60% when he's been playing. Usage rate is 42%, so just phenomenal. He's been carrying the ball about 10 times a game, 6 targets, averaging 13 points. For him, his points, he did have a little bit of a stinker last week, but going back 5 games, 6, 11, 25, 20, and 19. So definitely a guy that has got potential. Now we have Gurley coming in here. He's 12,000 on Fanduel, 600 less on DraftKings. Like I mentioned, phenomenal matchup. He's been averaging about 15 points for the year. Targets almost 3, carries about 17. He's out in the field 57% of the time. Usage rate is 49%. I don't know. Would you consider him for MVP? I don't know. I mean, I might throw him in some lineups. Really more based on the matchup. With him, last time he played Carolina, he had 23 points. Before that, 11. Of course, he was a Ram then. So hard to say how relevant that might be for him. But he's a guy to definitely put in lineups, right? And for 12,000, he's pretty priced fairly decently for his potential for production. And then from there, his backup is Brian Hill. He's coming in at 7,000 on FanDuel, 5,800 on DraftKings. He's out there 26% of the time when he's out there, 40% usage rate, but averaging about 5 points for the year. Targets about 2, carries about 5 a game. I don't know. He could sneak in a touchdown for sure, something like that, but it's hard to get really too excited about him. And then outside of that, into the cheaper guys, Ito Smith doesn't look like he's really played that much the last couple games. He's at 6,500, but that maybe be a guy if you wanted to buy down low. Just kind of sitting there looking at who else here. Allison, I don't know. He's really, I wouldn't mess around with him. Really, and these other guys probably wouldn't fuck around with them. And then going back here, let's just sit there. Who had been getting in the minutes outside of Davis? This Trenton Cannon guy, he's only out there 4% of the snaps, so don't really like him. Maybe Arma. It looked like he had out there 15% of the snaps, but again, I don't really like those guys. So I'd probably, my player pool, it'll probably, if McCaffrey plays, obviously he'll be in there, but it'll probably just be these 3 guys. I think I'm just going to fade all these other guys. I just don't really see them having that much of potential. Whereas, like usually, if I'm going to go for that low price guy, I like to take in like one of those receivers or a tight end. All right, kicker wise. Hey, both of them. Now, Koo here is average almost 12 points, 11.5 for the year. And Sly, about 10. So I'm not suggesting these guys could be in the MVP spot, but you could definitely see them being in the winning lineup for sure. Again, when you're getting guys that are priced around, 75 to, 9,500 or 10 grand, if they go out there, give you like, 12 points or something like that, you're going to be real happy with that. Just getting that production out of that price tag there. So, all right, guys, that is pretty much it. Hope you go out and kick some ass here Thursday night. And like I mentioned, if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. Would definitely appreciate that. All right, guys, good luck, and I'll be back with you soon with some other videos here for the NFL weekend. Peace out.